All right, welcome everybody to our webinar, 3 things you should know about buying a home in the Denver market. So I want to congratulate you all for being here today. I'm hoping we can share some very useful and relevant information here in the Denver market. I wanted to introduce a guest that we have today, Mike Oswarld with New American Financing. He is the winner of the Presidential Award, and he is also the top sales person for New American Funding on the West Coast region. So welcome, Mike.
Thanks, Derek. Happy to be here.
Perfect. Well, as we get into the webinar, I want to give a little bit of background. I've been in real estate about 15 years. I own the Gilbert Group here at Keller Williams Realty in the Denver Tech Center. We've got a team of about 6 people. I've been in the real estate business, as I mentioned, about 15 years, and about the past 10 of those have been here in Denver. We actually got our start down in Phoenix. Last year, in 2017, we were awarded the #1 real estate team in the entire state of Colorado for Keller Williams in production awards, and we also have been the listing agent of the year for the past 3 years. So the reason I bring up some of this is I just want to let you guys know that we're relevant. We're doing a high volume of sales here in the Denver, and so we're seeing things very quickly, which helps us to be able to provide some of this information, such as these webinars here today. So, Mike, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of your background in the mortgage business?
Absolutely, thanks. Yeah, I've been in the mortgage business here in Denver for 18 years. So, I've seen a lot. It's been a market that's had its fair share of changes, but it's been really exciting the last few years, especially with the Denver market, the way it's growing. And I've been #1 in my region for the last 2 years, and I've got a great team behind me, and we are having a lot of fun and helping a lot of folks buy homes.
Perfect. I'm looking forward to your input today. Mike has been my personal mortgage lender for the past 10 years. Mike and his team are absolutely amazing. And so we're blessed to have you on the webinar today, Mike. So thanks again.
Thanks, Derek.
Perfect. So let's get into it. So here, #1 point that we want to share today in buying in the Denver market is I think there is a huge misperception out there right now that properties are flying off the market and they're gone within hours or days, and that you're not even going to get a chance to even fight for some of these properties. And while that may be true, there's a lot of homes that are selling quickly. There are actually properties that are not selling in this market. And there are homes that are sitting depending on location, depending on price, depending on condition. And so one of the things that I think as a buyer, if you're in certain price points in the market and you're having to compete, is you can take a look at what properties haven't been selling, what homes are sitting on the market for a week, 2 weeks or more. There is the ability to negotiate in this market, and I think that at times buyers are scared to do that because it's not the norm. And so there are times where as agents representing buyers, we're specifically looking for homes that have maybe been sitting on the market for a little bit because maybe they are overpriced or maybe they do need a little bit of work and there's some sweat equity there for a buyer that others are missing out on. And so I think there's a big advantage in looking at homes that are not selling right away or that are sitting on the market for a while, coming in and trying to negotiate with those sellers and see if we can't get those values down more in line to where they should be, or negotiate in regards to the condition of the property, or maybe there's just a location issue. So there are a number of ways to approach purchasing homes that haven't sold immediately in this market. And as of last week, we had about, or actually this was not last week, this was Wednesday of this week, we had about 5,200 active homes for sale, and there were 681 price reductions last week. That's a lot. So I think what happens is this is the spring market, and a lot of sellers think they can ask whatever they want for a house, and that's not always the case. I think buyers are willing to pay a premium, but they realize they're not going to go above a certain point. At some point, it just doesn't make sense price-wise for these properties. And so those sellers are having to bring those prices down, and you're going to see some price reductions. So that's a second piece to that, is you can actually look at homes that are having to reduce their prices in order to sell. And that might be another great place to negotiate. So in fact, I put 3 buyers under contract this week, and I've got 2 offers in today. One of them is about to be accepted right now, where we actually came in under list price on 3 properties, and we're getting them. So those can be found, and those deals are out there. Anything to add on that one, Mike?
I was just sitting here thinking that, it's such a testament to the knowledge and the expertise that you have in this market. And to really, Derek, you put yourself out there to really kind of look for solutions to current, challenges, this market being lower inventory, higher price, acceleration of equity, and everybody's putting their, having trouble buying homes, as it were, and getting their offers accepted. And this is just really indicative of the way that you work and the way that you've been for the many years that we've been working together. And you actually did this for me personally. I mean, I didn't fail to mention Derek's my personal realtor, and he actually helped me when my family bought a home a few years ago, and he was able to do something like this as far as creativity. Remember that, Derek?
Oh yeah.
This is great.
We got you a great deal.
Yeah, you did.
Yep. So perfect. Let's jump into point 2 here. So number 1, not all properties are selling. Number 2 is take a look at new construction. I think a lot of people, maybe they just don't know how new construction works. How do you work with builders? Do you have to go and buy a lot, or do they have the lot, or how does all of that stuff work? I've been building homes with clients for 15 years. I've built probably well over 100 homes with clients at this point. So whether it's Richmond American, Taylor Morrison, you've got KV Homes, Century Homes, there's a ton of builders all over Denver. And so our market, in a way, has become, and I heard this actually from a builder last week, I thought it was stated perfectly, is it's a drive until you can afford it market. So if you can't afford a home in downtown Denver because prices have skyrocketed, and you don't want to pay $400,000 or $500,000 for 600 square feet, you actually want a home. Well, the builders are typically going to buy those lots, and they bought them a long time ago, that are going to be a little further out, but they're still relatively short commutes. So, you can get into the core of Denver in 20 or 30 minutes from a lot of these new construction communities. And so the benefits of going with a new construction is that you can avoid the competition of the resale market completely. There's a little bit of competition for the builders if you want some premium lots, or there's certain locations that you want within that community. But I would say in general, there's a ton of options as far as new construction goes. And we've got a number of clients that we're working with right now. I've got 2 under contract with Richmond American. They're one of my favorite builders here in Denver. They do a great job. So that's one way to approach it. The other part of it is you don't always have to wait on new construction. So if you need to get into a home in 3 months or 6 months, you don't necessarily have to do what's called a dirt start. Builders are always building inventory because they have to build in anticipation that not everyone can wait 12 months or 8 months for a home to be constructed. So they're going to build what are called spec homes. And spec homes are properties that the builder has not sold to a buyer yet, but they've already picked out what model it's going to be. They've picked out what lot it's going to go on, and typically what options are going to go into that home. And so as a buyer, you can come into these new construction properties, and if you like the model and you like the lot, you can get under contract with them, and you're going to be able to cut your build time way down, almost in half. Some of these spec homes, they're ready right now. They call them move-in ready homes. So if new construction is something that might interest you, definitely let us know, because we can give you some great advice as far as where to look, where there's certain builders and certain price ranges. We know what communities are offering certain incentives. Last month, there was some great incentives going around. We saw local builders was offering incentives towards closing costs on their financing. Richmond American was actually offering free basements up until the end of March. That was probably worth $45,000. It was a huge incentive. So if you watch some of the builders, there's times where they're really giving great promotions, and you can get some great deals on new construction as well. And at the end of the day, who doesn't love a new home? Nobody's ever lived in it. You design it. You picked out all the options. It can't get any more personal than that. So it's a lot of fun. I've actually built new homes for myself. My wife and I built a new home about 10 years ago when we were longer than that. Down in Phoenix, we built a new home down there that we had built ourselves and picked out all the options. And it's just a ton of fun. So if new construction might be an option, let us know, because we'd love to give you some direction on that too. And here's the best part. Builders pay your realtor. So it doesn't cost you anything. And as a buyer, you want to have representation with the builder, because as soon as you sign that contract, their contracts are not the realtor state approved contracts. They're builder contracts. So they're going to say the builder has all the rights and you have none. So the minute you sign off on that, you have no representation. So if anything goes awry in the build process, you don't have anyone to advocate for you, to push back on the builder. They're going to tell you how it's going to happen, and that's it. And so we have had a lot of situations. We've had a lot of things where we have had to step in and really help buyers, fight back with some things with builders. It's rare, but it happens. We had a builder that had built homes on a spring and they hadn't disclosed it, and there was water showing up in our clients' basements. That was a major one that we had to get involved with. We had builders that stated they were going to include certain things, and then they reneged on it during the contract, and we had to go back and make sure that got done. There was an air conditioner on one, there was a radon system on another one. We've had builders put walls up where there's not supposed to be walls. You name it. There's a lot of things that you want to make sure you've got some protection on. So if it's not me, make sure you have someone representing you on a builder. You don't want to go in there unrepresented. Regardless, it's not going to save you money. I can promise you that. So point number 3, you can time the market. A lot of people think that you can't. Well, you don't need a crystal ball to see seasonal swings within the Denver market. Historically, just even going back since the recovery of the recession, Denver is seasonal. Even though we have a very limited inventory, there are still swings and shifts that happen during the prime seasons in the Denver market. So right now, we're in April, and we're coming into May, and May historically is the top selling month every single year in Denver. That's when you see the most amount of homes hit the market. It's also when you see the most amount of homes going under contract, and you're going to start seeing those homes closing in June and in July. And that's why everybody always thinks it's the summer months. Well, those homes actually went under contract in the spring. It just took them 30 or 60 days to close, and that's why they show up as closed sales in the summer. So there's some pros and cons to the different seasons. Right now in the spring season, the pros as a buyer, is basically there is going to be a lot more inventory available in the next couple of months versus what you would have seen earlier in the year, in the fall and the winter. So yes, there's a lot more inventory. The cons are obviously there's a little bit more competition because everyone's trying to move around as summer approaches. Kids are getting out of school, all those things. So there's some great advantages to getting out right now. This is also the time of year where we see the greatest amount of appreciation in the shortest period of time. So we usually see the largest gains in home value from about March through May, and then that's going to start to level off around June and July. So getting into that second point there, summer is when you're going to start to see values typically level off a little bit. If you're in price ranges that are probably 300 and below, that's not necessarily the case. You still might start see that that value increase a little bit. But usually as we get 400,000 or 500,000 and above, you're usually going to start to see price ranges level off a little bit, just depending on where they're at and what parts of town you're looking in. So you're going to see more of that outside of the 470 loop. So maybe some of the suburbs like Parker, Castle Rock, Thornton, Westminster, areas like that. But the central core of Denver within the 470 loop, Littleton, Centennial, Aurora, Denver, areas like that, it's not going to level off as quick, or there might be some greater demand depending on where they're at. And then as we transition into the fall and winter, historically we see about a 3 to 5% pullback in pricing, once again, depending on where you're at. So if you're outside of that 470 loop, it's usually going to be a little bit higher of a pullback as you get higher in price. So I'd say about 500,000 and above. Outside of the 470 loop, you're usually going to see more of a 4%, sometimes 5% pullback in pricing. If you're inside that corridor, it's probably going to level off a little bit lower, like 2 to 3%. So that's where we can come in and help, as agents or as agents that are in the market all the time. You get insight, you see these trends and patterns. I'm looking at these numbers every single week with my team. We're reviewing what's going on in the market. We're looking at what inventories are doing. We're keeping track of average and median home sale prices, because if you're not in tune to those things, you can't give your clients the best advice, whether they're buying or they're selling. So you need to be an expert in those areas. So Mike, what do you see on the lending side? Do you see any patterns like this, or are any of these things showing up on the finance end of real estate?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's prices are going up, here in obviously the early months, like you talked about. This is where the bulk of the appreciation happens. So, folks that are entering the market maybe at the end of last year are seeing prices change this year, at this time of this year. And so it's, we're looking at that and taking that into consideration when we get you pre-approved. So we're making sure that we have you set for any of that appreciation. And I was just sitting here thinking, what's so fantastic about this, Derek, is that, you're just really an expert and a full-time professional real estate agent that has his pulse on the market, and that's what's really differentiates you with other agents, as it were, where you're sitting here saying, okay, let's put a strategy together based on your needs. And it may not be, hey, let's jump in and buy something right now. Maybe somebody might want to look at fall and winter and wait for the seasonal pullback, if that would be applicable based on the area that they're looking at, and so we'll talk to them about those things too, and make sure that, affordability is obviously key in getting the loan. And, qualifying is one thing, but affordability is a really big piece of it as well. I may be able to qualify you for more than what you can afford. And so it's important that we, as, partners, and obviously partnering with the Gilbert Group and making sure that we're putting our buyers into obviously the right house, but also the right loan and the financing that's going to work best for them. And it all goes hand in hand as far as timing.
Yeah, and I think you brought up a good point there, and it kind of fits in a little bit with what I was saying earlier on timing of the market, because I know this is a buyer presentation, but the discussion that I have on the sell side, and I think this will give buyers some insight, is that last quarter of every year, that fall and winter season, when we're seeing that pullback happen, usually the first quarter is when those sellers are getting all that money back. So if you're a buyer and you're buying in that last quarter, you're going to typically realize that appreciation right out of the gate starting in January, right? But that appreciation is going to typically be on an upward trend for 6 months, January all the way through June. Depending on the year, that might even go into July. Last year, it started pulling back a little earlier in June. The year before that, it was more like mid-July. So you've got about a 30-day window there between when we start to see the fluctuation in the market. So yeah, I think that's a great point. Mike, as far as like how you time it, how you budget, where does affordability come into play? Because I think that's one of the biggest issues right now in Denver is people are worried about what they can afford. And so sitting down with someone, running through the numbers with a mortgage lender and really dissecting that and saying, I know I qualify way up here, but here's where my budget is. And what does that afford me? Right. And I think those are the dialogues that you're having with people.
Absolutely.
Perfect. All right. So we always love to over deliver here at the Gilbert Group. So I know we told you we were going to give you 3, but we're actually going to give you 4. And I think we were kind of heading in this direction a little bit too. And I think that's experience matters. Buyers have access to everything these days. So I think the perception is that they don't always necessarily need a realtor, or they can find a home on their own. And that's true. I mean, buyers can get on Zillow, they can use Redfin, they can use all these other apps out there. But at the end of the day, access to the homes is not the issue. I think the issue is getting offers accepted in this market. And so when you're shorting the process and not interviewing people and making sure that you're well represented, I think that's another reason why people are failing to get into homes. Because I can tell you, if there's 10 offers on a property and I'm representing a buyer on one of them, my buyer's getting the house. And there's 9 other buyers that are walking away not getting the property. And it's because we understand how to negotiate in this market. You know, we're doing it every single day. You know, we're submitting multiple offers every single day. I've got an entire team of people. And so you can see things shift very quickly, and you get a very quick understanding as far as what people are looking for and what sellers need in this market. And that's a big part of what we put into our offer process, because we're communicating with those listing agents. We're asking questions that are relevant to preparing our offers. And not only that, we're giving our buyers the right consultation on how to prepare a winning offer. And what are the key things that you need to have in your offer to make sure that it's getting accepted in this market. And a big piece of that is the financing. You know, Mike, I know that you really go to battle for our buyers, and you really go to battle for the clients that you're working with when it comes to getting them an offer accepted. I mean, tell me a little bit about what you guys do as far as the lending piece and how you can actually help get a buyer's contract accepted.
Absolutely. So, I mean, like what Derek said, you know, dovetail on that. I mean, it's really important that you put together a strong offer, and Derek and his team, they're going to tell you the truth. They're going to work with you on the way that needs to be presented to put yourself in the position to win, to get your offer accepted. And that's been the experience that I've had working with Derek and his buyers throughout the years. And so what we do, in addition to getting you fully pre-approved and, you know, typically in looking at everything, reviewing everything as far as credit, your income, your assets, and putting you into the right program and making sure that no stone is left unturned and we dotted our I's and crossed our T's, all that. Once you make an offer, Derek reaches out and has me or my team reach out to the listing agent representing the seller. And what we do is we have a conversation with that agent and we let them know that who we are, and they've probably heard of us because we have a very strong market presence in Denver. And maybe they've even done business with me throughout the year.
You actually got one of my buyers a house accepted about 2 months ago because you were representing the seller on the purchase of their property and they weren't connected at all. And you ended up calling the listing agent. We ended up finding out that, hey, our buyer is working with you and the seller actually is doing their loan with you, and the seller had a different agent that was working with you. So we beat a cash offer. They had a cash offer that was higher than our offer, and we beat it because you went to town and you actually made that call, and we were able to connect the dots and get that offer accepted.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was a lot of fun, by the way.
Yeah, that was awesome.
To obviously win them, and that was especially fun. You know, and that's what we do. And we reach out to those listing agents. The number one thing that agents representing sellers are concerned about when sifting through offers, and they obviously get multiple offers, is making sure that the buyer that they choose the contract for is fully approved and can get financing and close. That's their number one concern and fear, because the seller doesn't want to accept that contract, go down the road, and then, you know, several days before closing, get that phone call from their lender saying, hey, we can't ultimately get their loan done. And they waste a good month or more of having their house off the market, and it causes a lot of problems. And
the buyers don't want that either. I mean,
exactly.
Who wants to get a house under contract, spend money on an inspection, a sewer scope, a radon test, an appraisal? You know, that's $1,500, $2,000 that the buyers have invested in the property. And if their loan falls apart, they lose that. So, you know, that's a big part of it, is just making sure your ducks are lined up or are in a row before you enter into a contract, and that you guys have really kind of dug through that financial piece of it. And you guys do a great job with that.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. And just to finish, I mean, what we do is when we talk to that listing agent, we put them at ease to let them know that we're a national company with a strong local Colorado presence, with tons of experience, and that we've done our due diligence in reviewing and pre-approving them. And it's the difference is that, yeah, there's a lot of lenders online. You can go online right now and find 100 lenders and 100 different rates, and they're all internet based. They're all out of Colorado. They're not based in Colorado whatsoever. And you can go down the road with those lenders, and buyers do. The problem is that a lot of those lenders don't deliver. They have a reputation for not delivering. And then when they're not going to pick up the phone and call that listing agent to represent you and say, hey, their offer's strong, we're going to get to the closing table, I guarantee it. And we've done everything. And they have an experience with us, and they know we're in the Denver Tech Center, or we're up north, or we've got multiple offices around the Metro Denver area. So they know we're real, and we're here, and we're local, and we're tied into the community, and that we have a reputation to deliver. And that's big. That's big. So the synergy between me and Derek and my team and Derek's team in helping you ultimately get your offer presented correctly and accepted, it's a team effort, and an experience matters.
Yeah. And the other part of it too is there shouldn't ever be any pressure on any of these things. In sales, I think people are always worried they're going to get pressured and kind of pushed into things. And I don't think our team could operate any further from that. We always sit down and we make sure we have a consultation with our clients, and we really kind of walk through what's important to them. When are they wanting to get into a home? Why do they want to get into a home? Financially, where are they at? And we're really going to dissect that and make sure that it makes sense for our clients. And if I think you'd be better off maybe waiting or saving for more of a down payment or getting yourself into a better financial position, I'm going to give you the best advice that I can. And if it works for you, great. And I know that you operate the same way, Mike. And that's one of the things that I have always appreciated about you and your team. And that's why we work with you, is because our clients don't walk away feeling like they're pressured into anything, and they don't feel like they're ever being told information that is in our best interest or somebody else's best interest so that they can get a paycheck. It should never operate that way. It should always be to protect the consumer, to protect the client, and put them in the best position for them and their family. Absolutely.
I couldn't agree more. And that's how we are, as well as you, is that we're educational. I'm a teacher at heart, and I really just want to teach and show you as a buyer all of your options, and we'll talk about your finances. I mean, I kind of talk about more than just the mortgage, because it's important to look at, your current situation and, if this is financially smart for you. And a lot of times it comes down to, hey, let's wait a few months. You've got some, income coming in, or maybe a bonus check or something like that, that's going to put you in a better position. And we'll say, hey, let's table this and maybe look at this, in the summertime, or something like that down the road that makes more sense for you. But this is supposed to be fun, and it's obviously a really good experience. Buying a home, gosh, it doesn't get more important than that, and we're in this to really build clients for life. And we really take pride in that. Both of us, both our teams. So we love that.
Well, I think, a lot of people, they forget they're about to make the largest financial decision typically of their life. And it's easy to treat that like a yard sale. And so bringing that back to reality and putting that level of importance on it, as well as attention to detail to the things that matter and the things that are going to make this smooth and effective, are of the utmost importance. So anyways, we're getting a little long in our webinar, so I'm going to cut it off here. And Mike, I want to thank you for being a guest today. Your insight and your information are always fantastic, and I just want to thank you for being here. And hopefully our buyers are getting some great information out of this today. If you're thinking about buying a home, or you're interested in at least talking about the process, give us a call here at the office, the Gilbert Group. My name's, again, Derek Gilbert, and you can reach us at 720-440-2805. Jump on our website, If you don't want to talk to us yet, jump on there, the gilbertgroupco.com. It's going to give you access to every house on the market. So if you want to just start playing around, start setting up some searches, free access there. I'm not going to bug you, I promise you. And you can always reach out to Mike as well if you'd like to talk about some financing options. Mike, how do they get a hold of you?
You can call me direct at 303-917-6737, and we'd be happy to chat with you. Thanks, Derek, for having me, by the way. I really had a good time.
Absolutely, Mike. Thanks again. And we're looking forward to speaking to all of you soon. Thank you so much.